Okay, today's video, we're going to talk about how to safely transition over to better, more profitable conversion tracking without messing up your current results that you have on your ad account already, okay? So what I mean by this is, if you're optimizing, let's say for form fills right now, and you want to then optimize for sales revenue, which if you watch my other videos, you should know how important that is and why you'll make at least 3 times as much money long-term doing this. If you wanted to switch over without your current short-term results fluctuating that much, then you are going to benefit greatly from the information I'm going to give you on this video, because it's going to tell you exactly how to do that specifically, to the point where your overall results might be affected by 5% or so overall in terms of your profit that you're making from your ads during the transition process. And then you'll have your 3x return you'll get from making that switch long-term still once that process is over. So I'm going to explain the process we go through at our firm here that you can use to switch from optimizing from one goal to another, optimizing from leads to qualified leads to sales, sales to revenue, or even cart abandonments to actual cart sales, whatever you want to switch over to, given there's a strong reason why to optimize for stuff that you don't ultimately want to optimize for up front, and then switching over to optimize for stuff that's more closely related to actual profit that you're making. There's a point in doing that is, AKA making money sooner in the process while still having the greatest overall result in your company in terms of profit that you can make. I'll go into detail about all those individual things and the process we use and then how much you can make from it. Before I get into the content though, if you do not know who I am Corey Zyman, owner of Guaranteed PPC, an online advertising agency that specializes in guaranteeing results for their clients. That is, we do not charge our clients management fees until we can get them a certain minimum lift in their profitability, basically in excess of the management fees that we charge. We are the only agency out there doing that, which should tell you something about the quality of the information that I share with you in today's video. So with that said, getting into the content, there's 2 main overall categories of conversion goals that you could track to get results with your Google Ads account, okay? Ultimately, when we're talking about Google Ads, or you could be also doing the same thing with Microsoft Ads itself, and the same thing would apply. But what you have are micro goals, which are going to be like FAQ button clicks, people who click the FAQ button to read your FAQ, people that fill out part of a contact form or only got to step 1 or step 2 with a contact form, people that had started to chat your live chat, via your live chat system, but they didn't turn into an actual lead. People that add something to their cart or got to the cart checkout, but it did not finish their purchase. Then you got actual macro goals, people who fill out the form, people who call, also similar to that, people who are marked as a qualified lead versus just any lead, and of course sales. All right. Now, with that said, people often question. There's 2 main questions that people ask that are fallacies as to what stops them from making the real money with ads. They ask, 1, why do I need to optimize for FAQ button clicks or partial form fills versus I can just optimize for form fills itself? They ask that question. They also ask, hey, I'm optimizing for form fills. Why do I have to optimize for sales? Both of those are going to stop you from making most of the money you can make with your ads, either short or long term. Short term, of which, when you don't optimize for micro conversions, it's going to take you longer to get your ads to a certain minimum amount of revenue that you made, just simply trying to optimize for leads, at least in a lot of niches where leads are not so easy to get, by not first optimizing for these micro conversions, because you can build up the minimum conversion data you want sooner, optimizing for micro conversions, which are still loosely correlated with profit and sales, then switching over to optimize for actual leads once you have at least 10 to 30 actual conversions, actual leads, form fills, phone calls tracked in your account, if you will. So you optimize for the one goal, the micro conversions, until you have 10 to 30 conversions of the actual goal you want to track, which is leads. And then you could take this further and you could wait until you have 10 to 30 qualified leads to optimize for qualified leads. And then you could wait till you have at least 30 sales to optimize for sales. And then you go from one to the other to the other. And that's what I call the waterfall effect when you're setting up your ads to scale and optimize for more profit. Given that you need a certain minimum amount of conversion data to have the smart bidding systems that Google has to properly optimize, you set up your account to track all these things from the very beginning. And then the only question is what your campaign should optimize for at the given time, given the amount of data, the length into the process of optimizing your ads that you're actually in, if you will, right? So with all that said, where people have been going wrong that I've been educating and coaching on this channel and in our private coaching is what they'll do is they'll optimize for form fills or phone calls, and they'll get a bunch of results that way. They're very happy about what they got. However, they take my advice to optimize for qualified leads versus just leads in general, so they can optimize for the better quality leads that are getting more profit, because they'll be able to outbid their competition for the best leads and let your competition have the shitty leads by bidding less for them because they're not worth as much and you know what they're worth. They'll optimize for phone calls and form fills, and then they'll switch all their campaigns to optimize for qualified leads all of a sudden, and the results will just tank. They'll go to like half of what they were before. And it'll stay like that for a good 30, if not 60 days, okay? Now, that might be fine if you're in a position where your account's really not making any money yet and it's a small overall part of your business. However, if Google Ads is half of your revenue you have coming in and profit, like a lot of businesses do, which is a big mistake, by the way. You don't want to rely on one traffic source for over half your revenue. That's the most common way I see businesses go out of business that I talk to, is doing exactly that. If you're relying on it heavily, you can't afford to have your results go in half short term, even if you're going to make 3 times as much long term optimizing for profit versus, leads or whatever you're doing. So in that case, what you do, or what you should do, is what we do at our firm to transition from optimizing from one goal to a more ideal goal based upon us being a little further down the pipe and where we're at, and then having a little bit more extra conversion data racked up in our account. So at the given time, when you just start out your account, essentially you're going to track everything. You're going to track leads, qualified leads, purchases, revenue, and you're going to have everything marked in secondary minus your FAQ, your micro conversions, FAQ button clicks, partial form fills, and the like. And then when you get 10 to 30 conversions of the actual lead, goals that track actual leads, form fills, phone calls, you'll set up the campaigns to optimize for only those. And all you have to do to switch the campaigns to optimize for one versus the other is just take everything that was marked in secondary and mark it primary. So you could the simplified process would be you switch your micro conversion goals from primary to secondary, and then your macro goals that track actual leads, you'd mark those from secondary to primary. And then that whole account would know, and all the campaigns would know to optimize for actual leads, not the micro conversions anymore. Problem is, you do that again, and it's going to mess up your results usually pretty bad for a while the algorithm is trying to adjust. And so what you do to minimize that damage during the transition period is this. Instead of marking the goals, the macro goals primary, and then make your micro goals secondary, you keep the micro goals in primary. You then switch the macro goals to at least the ones that track leads, not sales, because you're of course, doing this in stages. You mark those to primary as well. And then the campaigns just has a little extra data to look at. You let that ride like that for 30 days. Then after 30 days, you pick one campaign that's not going to spend more than 20% of your overall ad account budget, or 20% of your overall sales is coming from that campaign. And then you switch that campaign at the campaign level, which if you go into your campaign settings, under goal settings, you could set up the campaign to optimize for whatever goal you want. So in this case, you're going to set up the campaign to optimize for form fills and phone calls by itself, not the micro conversions. So that particular campaign is going to optimize for macro conversions only, whereas all the other campaigns are going to optimize for the micro and macro conversions. And then after 30 more days, you're going to switch another campaign to just only optimize for macro conversions, form fills, and phone calls until all your campaigns are switched over. So it's basically a campaign a month. You switch them over, and with that method, you basically won't notice your overall profitability from your ad account fluctuate in a significant way, and certainly not going to affect you so where you're unprofitable at any point. Yes, it takes longer to switch over, so there is some drawback to that, given if you would get to optimizing for the next level up in terms of the conversions, you would get to the maximum result you could ever get with your account sooner. It's just going to come at the price of really screwing up your account short term to get there sooner, if you will. But that is screwing up your account short term to get there sooner, if you will. But that is specifically the process, if you will. So what you're going to typically always do when you start out is you're going to optimize for the micro conversions, FAQ button clicks, and so on and so forth, and then switch to your goals that track leads in primary. And you're going to optimize for them both. And the reason why, by the way, the campaign won't be affected by optimizing for the micro and macro conversions at once is because usually there's going to be 10 micro conversions for every 1 to 2 macro conversions itself. So 10 FAQ button clicks for every form fill. When a campaign's got and used to operating off of 10 conversions a month and it goes to 12 conversions a month, the campaign won't go haywire. It's not a big enough change to really send the campaigns back into learning mode, which when that happens, that's when your results really go down the tubes because you start showing up for different people than you did before and not the people who've gotten you the success that you have now already with that campaign. When you switch over the campaign to optimize for macro goals by itself, though, then you're going to have to go in your campaign and switch the target CPA to a much higher number because your cost per conversion is going to go way up at that point in time. You will have to do that. But because this campaign only amounts to less than 20% of your overall account sales you're getting from your account as a whole, you're not going to notice your overall account go into negative profitable territory. Got it? So you're spreading out the change over a longer period of time, which makes the negative effect that it's going to have on your account spread out over a longer period of time as well. So, and then once you, of course, switched over to tracking form fills or phone calls, you can go to tracking qualified leads and having the campaigns only optimized for that and do it one campaign at a time, then optimize for transactions, then optimize for revenue/profit, and then actual profit itself. So depending on what business you're in, and I just made a video about this, about what's the right bidding strategy for your business type. You know, if you're doing national services, we'll often optimize for micro conversions. Then, to be honest, usually it's just regular conversions, form fills or phone calls. But then we're going to optimize for qualified leads. Was the lead marked qualified by our client? And then we're going to optimize for revenue at the final stage and switching everything from maximize conversions to maximize conversion value bidding strategy. And we'll do that as we get at least 30 conversions of the next goal type up until we're at our end destination. That will allow us to scale the campaign up quickly in the beginning and still have the best overall results we can get long-term once everything is broken in. And for that matter, by the way, we'll actually only switch from one to the other, usually not on a specific amount of conversions that we've racked up, but if we're optimizing for leads and our results are going up like crazy with just by optimizing for leads by itself, we'll just not change anything. Because with Google Ads, if it's not broken, don't try to fix it, because every time you make a change in your account, it's going to negatively affect your results short term, especially big changes that send your campaign into learning mode. But once your results start to plateau, then you could then make the decision, well, I can't get to the next stage unless we switch things over. I'm going to switch to optimizing for revenue now, and that'll kick off the next stage of your growth. And that's typically when we switch over, not when we hit a certain minimum benchmark of conversions. Because in some occasions, we'll wait until we have 500 sales to switch from optimizing for leads to sales. If you want to know for your business type what you should be optimizing for in terms of conversion goals and what bidding strategy to use with it, watch my previous video about that exact topic in general. I don't want to go through everything again because it's going to make the video too long. For that matter, by the way, all the information you need to be able to make literal millions of dollars a year in your business in terms of revenue from ads, it's all for you for free on this channel. Given I spend 40 hours a week doing ad strategy at our firm to find out what works, and then I spend another 30 hours a week on the weekends talking about what worked. And no other person on YouTube, as far as I know, is doing that exact thing. And if there was, I would pay attention to it myself. So if you're serious about making money with ads, you want to subscribe. So subscribe already if you haven't. If you're really serious to this topic of making money with ads. You should also check out my blog on my site at guaranteedppc.com/blog. The blog has all the strategies we use at our firm laid out step by step with screenshots, with everything you need to use them. So if you like the channel, you can check the blog out as well, and you should be just as happy, if not more happy, about the information that's there, as is you will find on this channel. If you have any questions about anything I covered here, by the way, leave me a comment below. I get back to every single person who leaves me a question or comment on this channel, typically within 24 hours time. Getting back to what I was saying here, so you're going to switch campaigns to optimize for the next level up in terms of conversions that are a step closer to tracking actual profit in your business with 30 days apart. And you're going to not switch anything over until you mark the goals you want to start utilizing as primary for a full 30 days to give the campaign some initial data from that next step up goal for a while to look at, so that when you switch the campaign over fully to look at that goal, it won't be such an abrupt change on it. So not only are you going to spread your risk out and the change out over 6 months, switching campaigns one at a time, but each campaign is going to have time to look at the conversion data of the goals that you want to switch to ultimately for a while before you force it to utilize the data from that particular goal set by itself. And you set up your tracking to track leads, qualified leads, purchases, revenue, and profit, so that eventually you're going to be able to optimize just for profit and make the most money from optimizing for profit, because of course the algorithm is going to make the best decisions if you actually are showing it what's profitable. You can't basically complain about your results that you're not getting from Google Ads, Microsoft/Bing ads, unless you tell it what's profitable, because how is it supposed to give you that if you don't tell it, basically? And ideally, you're going to optimize for actual profit. You optimize for qualified leads by having a CRM system, or you use CallRail and you score your leads in there, and then leads that are qualified, you import them to your ad account via something called offline conversion tracking, which it revolves around something called a Google Click ID, and importing that when a lead is marked qualified. You can watch my videos about offline conversion tracking by searching for it on my channel homepage in the search bar. Then you're going to optimize for purchases, of course. And if you're doing, let's say you have an e-commerce business and you sell something for over $100, a lot of times people are going to order over the phone, or they're going to delay their purchase. And in that case, you want to track not only the phone orders that come in, but people when they turn into a lead, capture their information, so that if somebody buys 2 months from now under a different name or different computer, you're still going to be able to track that sale in your ad account. And you do that through offline conversion tracking as well. You're going to want to do that as well, so that ultimately you can optimize for purchases, not just the purchases that are easy to capture and that people buy right away, but people that delay their purchases as well. Then you're going to want to optimize for revenue divided by ad spend, or as we call it in the marketing space, ROAS, or return on an account spend. And then eventually the final destination where you're going to make the most money of all is optimizing for profit. And what I mean by profit and how that's different from ROAS is you actually are going to break your products and services down by category and see what the margins are for each category, given that your margins are going to be likely different for each product or service category you sell, so that your campaigns can be set up with a different target ROAS based upon the amount of ROAS you need on that campaign to equal a certain ROI in your business. So if of course, margins are twice as good on category A of products versus category B, well, a target ROAS needs to be twice as high on products in category B than it is in category A to give you the same overall ROI from both categories itself. You're optimizing truly by profit at that point in time, understanding what your ROAS or return on an account spend has to be in order to generate a certain ROI in your business, given that the overhead or cost of goods to deliver that product or service is going to be different than other products and services that you offer, if you will. That is something that basically nobody thinks about. In some businesses, it makes such a huge difference, like in the HVAC space, where we're doing air conditioning, installation, and service. Margin in service versus installation is hugely different. And so we want to optimize for not just return on a revenue divided by ad spend or ROAS for each one of those, but profit by understanding the margin being hugely different between those two, if you will. Margin on the services being greater itself. So anyways, that's the main thing I would tell you there as to what your overall goal should be, other than set up your tracking to be as good as possible, capture the most data the most accurately way that you can, and then set up all your goals in the beginning so you can transition and eventually get to the end goal of optimizing for actual profit in your business. There's other stuff to know about tracking, of course, in terms of setting up backup goals using Google Analytics, so that when your primary goals break, you can quickly go back to them to a backup. You also can see if the goals that you have that you're tracking what you need to track are working by comparing the conversion data that you have on the primary goal to the backup goal that you set up through Google Analytics, which is something we do at our firm, to using enhanced conversion tracking and server-side tracking to get extra conversion data from your cart purchases that you wouldn't have got otherwise if you were just using regular standard conversion tracking in 2025, which anybody could do that, even though it's a little difficult to do that. We know how to do it at our firm. Enhanced conversion tracking, server-side tracking, which is even more hard, significantly harder. Reach out to me at my agency at guaranteedppc.com if you're interested in that. We can also give you 20 other ways that we can make you more money from your ads and tell you what we can guarantee in terms of an increase in profit while doing it. And then with that said, if you are in a market that we've already operated in to where, basically we've done all the hard work to figure out what works in your market in terms of ads, landing pages, campaigns, you can buy those templates from us outright to use in your own ad accounts and get the same results we are in a different city or country that you're not in or client's not in, and use it for yourself. And in that way you can manage your own campaigns and still get pretty good results because you're starting with the copy that works in your market and the offers that work and so forth. So if you're interested in that, you can also let me know. We've got over 100 different templates because we've been operating for over a decade here now and just have a lot of them available. We can tell you the results you're going to get with it up front because we've already operated in that market, obviously. And the results are so good, we got people using these templates to start whole their businesses up from scratch. If you want to get into a business guaranteed to work, use a template to start up a business where you could literally sub out the work or sell the leads and you have a business already. Drop shipping. So if you're interested in that, let me know. Guaranteedppc.com is where you can inquire about that as well as coaching and consulting that I've started doing in the past year. I've been working with individuals such as yourself to figure out where the bottlenecks are in their businesses, where you could tell me what you're doing. I could look at your ads, I could look at your sales process and tell you why your ads are not working, given a lot of times the ads are not the issue. It's the sales process, it's the website, it's your tracking, and tell you where your actual bottlenecks are that's stopping you from getting more profit in your business as a result of your ads or the part of the ads that make it not work. So if you're interested in that, you can also reach out to me at guaranteedppc.com as well. So this is in general what I would want to do. This is the most ideal way to set your tracking up and advance from optimizing at the beginning for stuff that's loosely correlated with profit to absolute actual profit. With that said, I'm going to wrap it up with that. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.
Remember when I said offline conversion tracking was important during this video? Well, this video here tells you how to do it.